Touch me.
How you feeling?
I'm bad, but I'm here.
Contagious is
It
what he
was a
is.
strong tease, so I'm feeling like you're all right.
I'm gonna make it. I'm not feeling well, but I'm gonna make it.
Sometimes when people don't feel well, they play their best game, so I'm expecting a big show from
like
you.
that. Something like
Let's get into it. LeBron James and Dwayne Wade went head-to-head last night at the Q. Not a defining moment, but the Bulls did pull off the dub against the shorthanded Cavs team. What was a defining moment for LeBron, according to Wade, was last season's finals comeback. Here's D. Wade on his good friend.
That was incredible. I mean, we've seen a lot. You know, I've seen obviously teams come back from 3-1 in playoffs that much, but especially in the finals and not having home court advantage. You know, that was really special. What those guys was able to do, obviously led by Bron, and I think from his career, I think that moment right there really put him where he probably wanted to be, where everybody thought he was going to be one day when he was deemed as the chosen one. You know, it was a defining moment for his career forever, so it was special.
So D-Wade knows a thing or two about the postseason and LeBron James, and he says King James pulling off the 3-1 comeback was the defining moment of his career. Max Kellerman,
yeah.
Do you agree with that?
You're damn right. Of course it was the defining moment of his career. I was on Sports Nation at the time, and I turned to the camera and said, okay, LeBron, you're down 3-1 on the road to the greatest, eventually it was 3-3, obviously, but you were down 3-1. You're now on the road against the greatest regular season team of all time, a 73-win team. What you gonna do? I mean, that's the Muhammad Ali moment against George Foreman. You can't win, and somehow you do. And at the time, I got a lot of people on Twitter saying, I'm setting LeBron up. It's, you know, the way we were talking about Brett Favre talking Aaron Rodgers. Well, they should beat everyone. You raise the expectations so high that no one can achieve it. And then when the guy falls short, you get to point the finger and say, you see, he's not as good as you thought. Yes, the expectations are that high for LeBron because he's the chosen one. He's chasing Jordan. That's the highest possible standard. Muhammad Ali, the greatest ever, had to fight George Foreman, invincible. He was going to lose. He was going to get killed. He was going to get knocked out. And he somehow figured out a way to win. That was the defining moment in LeBron James' legacy, because to do what he did was impossible, and yet he did it. And in so doing, Stephen A., he redeemed himself for the choke job, there's no other way to describe it, against Dallas when he was with Miami in 10-11. 4 consecutive fourth-quarter chokes by LeBron. No, the Jordan ship has sailed. He's never going to be everything that everyone thought he might be in terms of that level of greatness. And he fulfilled that level of greatness. He fulfilled a legacy. He created a legend on a whole new level. That, so far, is the defining moment of LeBron James's career.
Well, Max Kellerman, you're wrong. But you ought to be forgiven for what you do not know. Because you have to understand that certain things precede certain things. You got to crawl before you walk, and sometimes that crawl is far more profound than you walking and ultimately strutting. When you talk about the LeBron James that was in the finals last year against the Golden State Warriors, albeit down 3-1, ultimately coming back, there's a couple of things to take into consideration. A, he was already a 2-time champion. B, even though he was down 3-1, Draymond Green got suspended for Game 5, Andrew Bogut got hurt while he was out, ultimately Iguodala got hurt as well. So you had Bogut out for Game 7. Iguodala hobbled for Game 7, even though Draymond Green was back. I believe to this day that Golden State stands here today as reigning 2-time defending champions had Draymond Green not got suspended. Having said all of that, let me tell you what the defining moment is, and I'll give you an insider's perspective here.
Can't wait to hear this.
It is June 7th, 2012. It is at TD Bank Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. The year earlier, the season earlier, LeBron James disappeared in the 4 consecutive fourth quarters against the Dallas Mavericks. So not only had he lost in the finals to the Spurs when he was with Cleveland. Then he ultimately arrives 3 years later in Miami. That first year, him, D. Wade, Chris Bosh, they sit up there, they don't get it done. LeBron is crucified throughout the offseason, crucified throughout the following season because everybody's waiting for the moment. And then going up against KG and Paul Pierce and Ray Allen and Rajon Rondo before he was getting benched and relegated to being a reserve. This is when he was considered one of the elite point guards in the game. You had your big 4 in Boston, and they go up 3-2 on the Miami Heat. And everybody, and I do mean everybody, and their mamas and their grandmothers and everybody else are like, LeBron, what you gonna do? And everybody is writing the epitaph. It's a basketball funeral for crying out loud. I do the show here, Max, okay? I literally get in my car. Sports Center has me driving in Boston. I am there. And LeBron James comes out before a shot is taken on anything. He looks like a man possessed. And everybody is watching him and waiting for him to fold, waiting for the choke job to take place. He comes out there, instantly buries a jumper. And before you know it, he hits 19 of 26 shots, drops 45 and 15 on Boston, completely annihilates them. It wasn't even a game from the first quarter on. He dunked on Paul. I forgot who it was, whether it was, if it wasn't Paul Pierce, I think it was Jason. I forgot who it was. And he just dunked on them and just looked at them and stared at them and walked away. Everybody looked at this. It was a defining moment in his career. It showed you, whoa. It made you step back. A defining moment. I'm just saying.
Not the defining moment.
I'm saying the defining moment because of this reason. Because of this reason. He never had it. In other words, he wasn't a champion. He was chasing it, and we were waiting for the choke job. And when he showed up, that was the first time we all sat back and said, oh, damn.
Bunch of things to say about that.
He might do this.
I got a bunch of things to say about that. First, I'll take the Boston Celtics series. The Celtics weren't as good as the Warriors, period. There's no debate about that. They didn't win 73 games. They were an easier conference. That was the Eastern Conference Finals, not the Finals. Not as big a deal.
Wrong analogy, but go ahead.
You blame various injuries and details on LeBron's ability to come back in these last finals.
I still give him credit, though.
But the finals previous, he didn't have Kevin Love or Kyrie Irving. Would he have won, considering he went 6 competitive games?
I think he would have
with Kyrie and Kevin.
Won.
Right, and yet he lost. Like, those details, whatever, man, that's not the big picture. The big picture is he was down 3-1 to the greatest regular season team that ever was. And it was over. You couldn't find a person on earth to say he's going to come back and win that series on the road. No one was saying that. It was an impossible thing to do. Down 3-2 to the Celtics when really Miami was the better team. They had more talent. They'd already played together, you know, the whole thing. They'd had their ups and downs. They were gelling as a unit. That's a great defining moment, like when Ali beat Sonny Liston. But the George Foreman moment, the one where LeBron James did the impossible and cemented his legacy on another level, where legends are born, are not down 3-2 to a very good Celtics team in the Eastern Conference Finals, where legends are born, are down 3-1 to the greatest team ever, and you come back.
Allow me to chime in and have the last word on this. I get where you're coming from. I don't blame you for feeling that way. I'm telling you, the moment, because of how he had wilted before, it's entirely different than when you're a champion. You're a 2-time champion. You're going up against a team who's perceived as being better. Yes, Steph Curry wasn't 100% healthy. Yes, Draymond Green had got suspended for Game 5. Andrew Bogut got hurt. He was out for Game 6 and 7. And Andre Iguodala wasn't healthy. But like you said, if you even want to shove all of that aside, because of the greatness of Golden State, one could make the argument that you were playing with house money because you had absolutely nothing to lose. But those other parts came in to assist in that regard. I'm saying psychologically, in terms of the nuances that come with the game of basketball, when you are a star who hasn't lived up to it in big moments. You did it every other time. You do it during the regular season. You do it during the first 46 minutes of most games. But somehow, some way to keep pivotal moments in a postseason when it's called upon for your greatness to elevate you to another level, to another stratosphere, for you to be on the Mount Rushmore of basketball analysts. When those moments arrived, at that point, he had not arrived. And so for him to show up in Boston, who, by the way, the Boston Celtics was just a year removed from losing in Game 7 of the NBA Finals to the Lakers, and those brothers could still ball, and they were no joke, and they were more than capable of winning the championship, being coached by Doc Rivers. For LeBron James to walk up in there and to dominate in that game, in that moment, and I can't tell you, Max, to be there in person, to watch all of us literally ready to write his epitaph, literally ready to write it, and to just say he's done. And for him to raise up that way, it's why Miami, Pat Riley, Mickey Everson, and the crew still has that big poster
Put him up here.
in the hallways of in the corridors of American Airlines Arena, all right, where LeBron James is sitting there and all you see is the white in his eyes practically because he looked like a man possessed. He's not there anymore because he's not there, but it was there.
That put
it was
him here,
unbelievable.
Stephen A. That put him
It was unbelievable.
The Golden State Warriors series put him through the roof.
I just think
You
that
both
moment in
made strong
Boston,
cases.
it was the
They're both pivotal
defining moment of his career.
Let's leave it there. Another man who's very comfortable in the finals, but the finals in March. That would be Coach K. He was met with a standing ovation ahead of Duke's domination over Georgia Tech, 110-57, in Mike Krzyzewski's last game before taking leave due to back surgery. So Coach K is out, but Grayson Allen is back in. Don't trip. Allen was announced as a starter minutes before the Blue Devils tipped off. Duke had suspended Allen indefinitely for a tripping incident, the third of his career. That was last month. He ended up missing just one game, a loss at Va-Tech. Here's Grayson and Coach K on why the ban was so short.
It's tough to watch, because, if I did all the right things, I would have been out there, and I didn't. And, with that part of it, I let my team down. And, I'm sorry to the guys, for not being able to be out there with them. It's not anyone else's fault but myself. And so, that part of it, as a competitor really hurt. But I'm very happy to be back now.
The things that we done were appropriate. The things that you see or the public sees, and then there are things that you all don't see that you shouldn't see or shouldn't be talked about, and they're called teaching. And you don't need to teach out in the public all the time. But what he did was wrong. He was punished for it. I think it's time to move on. I think the new role that he has will be a good one, for him.
Stephen A., 3 tripping incidents, 1 game suspension. You okay with that?
No, I'm not okay. Listen, I'll answer it this way. I don't think the suspension was long enough. When it went down, before Coach K announced the suspension that day, after he tripped that kid for Elon, which was the 3rd incident in the calendar year, Louisville and Florida State, he tripped players in those games. I said he should be suspended for 5 games, and I meant that. But at the same time, I want to be very, very clear. And I'm one of those guys, Max, that I pride myself in talking to players to make sure they understand that they can influence a perspective, because I'm not them and I'm not there. If I talk to them and I talk to people tight to them, and they make that argument, I want to give them credit. J.J. Redick plays for the Los Angeles Clippers. J.J. Redick is a very good guy. He's also a very feisty individual who can shoot lights out, who can play. He's a former Duke star, very similar to Grayson Allen. Went through a lot of the stuff that Grayson Allen goes through, okay? That's right, yes, being white and being able to ball the way that they can ball. You're going to have people that come at you the wrong way at times. Yes, that does happen to white basketball players, ladies and gentlemen. There are people that bother them. They're actually the victims and not the villains. And in the case of Grayson Allen, that may have very well been the case. And J.J. Redick came to his defense last year and speaking on his behalf, so I understood that. But once it happens a 3rd time, you're Coach K. And when you're Coach K, the man who has over 1,000 victories, the man who has about 983 career wins at Duke, who's won nearly 80% of his games, and he's 5-time national champion. You are Coach Mike Krzyzewski. You are not just a coach of Duke. You are the standard bearer. And so what happens is that when you isolate and you zero in and you're protective of your player, conveniently, I might add, in the immediate aftermath of you losing to Virginia Tech without him, then your priorities appear a bit skewed. And that's what comes across here. I'm not in any way casting too many aspersions on Grayson Allen. He's a kid. He made a mistake. No doubt about that. It's tripping. He didn't shoot anybody. He didn't use drugs or anything like that.
But he could have really hurt someone.
But he could have hurt somebody with tripping them. You got to give that kid more than 1 game to send the right message. I disagree with Coach K limiting it to just 1 game, although I understand the back injury and the fact that he's not going to be around may have influenced him making this decision.
Tripping is dangerous, but let's not blow it out of proportion in terms of the danger of tripping someone.
Right.
people trip someone as pranks all the time. Even if they, like, if you're running, it's more dangerous, and it's these guys' careers,
Sure.
and I get it. It's not like knocking someone out of the air, which we sometimes see 10 feet up in the air, happening to Blake Griffin for years, you know? That's, to me, it seems very dangerous for what we see in the NFL. Oh, I don't want to go high, you go low. It's like that could end a guy's career. Tripping's not exactly the same thing. Let's just be honest about that.
Sure.
But the issue here is it's the third time. And it was a national spectacle the second time, right? Like, oh, this keeps happening. And he still did it a third time. And then he goes to the bench and has a temper tantrum like a toddler, right? So I would say it's not so much from Coach K's perspective in terms of being consistent and instituting a punishment or instilling discipline when it's least convenient for him, which is really how you uphold a code of ethics properly.
Right.
I think it really has much more to do with Grayson Allen. This is a guy with an impulse control problem. So he needs to feel the burn when he touches the stove. For his own sake, we make this originally came up, we discussed this on the show, and something Boogie Cousins had done the day before came up, and it's the same thing with Boogie Cousins. It's not for anybody else, it's for him. Too good a player. Like, if he has an impulse control problem, the powers that be need to help him rein that in. Same thing with Grayson Allen. So then the question becomes, how do you do that? What's a stiff enough punishment? I think considering it is only tripping, I don't mean to minimize it too much, but I also don't want to blow it out of proportion. But it's the third time the recidivism deserves something. A one-game suspension by itself wouldn't be enough. However, he's had his captaincy stripped. And to me, that is maybe would land harder on him than even the suspension. If you're no longer the captain of the team, that's a big deal.
Well, here's where you and I part ways. You're saying it should be about him. I'm saying because of it's Coach K, it should be about the message you're sending as well. I'm not trying to sit up there and act like, oh, Grayson Allen should be the sacrificial lamb. But in essence, if that's what it comes down to, so be it. Because if you're Coach K speaks on a lot of different issues. Coach K is as close to, I mean, listen, I don't know the man privately, and you don't always hear the greatest things about him. But by and large, his reputation is pretty impeccable. There is no doubting that he's one of the greatest coaches ever. We all have profound respect and admiration for him. He's a friend of this show. We love him. But to be clear, he is the standard. And what happens when you're the standard is that you are the individual utilized to speak on a potpourri of issues. And you are the closest thing to being a paragon of virtue. We damn sure ain't going to say it's John Calipari or somebody else. We're going to lean on Coach K. So you're the same guy that lectured Dylan Brooks because you didn't like his behavior against your team in the NCAA tournament. Why is it that your player goes out there and acts up not one, not two, but on 3 separate occasions in a calendar year, and you would even think that one game suffices?
You seem to be talking about the optics because we don't know if,
yes, I am questioning
the calculus of what Coach K is doing.
Right.
Maybe he thinks this is appropriate, but you're saying in terms of the optics, Coach K needs to be consistent because of his position. What I would argue is, let's assume that what he's doing is virtuous. In other words, he's not just trying to benefit his own team and not lose his best player for too long a time, but he actually believes this is the appropriate punishment. Then for Coach K to appear hypocritical in order to do right by the individual, in this case Grayson Allen, I think is virtuous. I think to sacrifice perception of himself to do the right thing by somebody is actually the right thing to do.
You are right. If it is the right thing. I don't believe one game is the right thing.
And taking away the captaincy?
Well, you know what, listen.
I think missing games is worse.
Missing games is worse to me
than
because,
the captaincy, but I can't speak to that.
But it's the combination of the two.
Listen. You're named the team captain.
Yeah.
And so as a result, you have more of a voice. But once you have that voice, as long as you remain on the team and you remain a contributor on the team, your voice is not compromised, regardless of whether you have that C as a title or not. I'm here to tell you that right now. But missing those games is far more profound. It stings far more. And in this case, I think it was appropriate.
The proof in the pudding is we'll see what happens with Grayson Allen from here on out, if he learned or not.
And the other thing is college basketball. It's not college football where you could cost yourself a national championship. Duke could have lost these 5 games, still made the NCAA tournament. So it really makes it even worse because you really don't have to do this. It's not really compromising your season.